Hi, I'm Steve. This is Fran. Normally we do ranking videos and versus videos together, but today we had a suggestion of just answering questions. So the next half hour, whatever questions you have, we're just going to answer. So I think we have a few to start.
Yep.
Fran, you do a better job.
Sounds good. So we're here for the people. Let's answer these questions. So first one we got is from Ethan P. And he asks, what is the future of gas appliances in Massachusetts with the new specialized stretch code?
That's a great question, because it seems to be like the Wild West. And we do a lot of vertical business, and I think the gas is probably on the way out if it isn't already for vertical. However, it gets a little dicey. One of our builders had a gas 60 inch gas range approved, but they couldn't get the sign-offs from the inspectors. So that's something you want to avoid. I think, and then I hear about deals that you can put gas appliances in, because again, it's easier to use gas because you get much less amperage from gas than you do, say, from induction, which is the next choice for luxury. So instead of going 50 amp, you only use 12. So it's much better for a builder to use gas. That said, I heard that certain accommodations are made with more affordable units. I think this is a case by case kind of situation, and if I was building anything, I would check with whoever's going to sign off on that building or the house or the project that you're doing.
Like I said, it's kind of all over the place still right now with no kind of set standards yet, but we're definitely getting there. But not to say that, induction is definitely a great alternative, but obviously, if it's a remodel or you're just replacing, there's definitely some things you got to check, like amperage and outlets and plugs and all that.
So yeah, you can't, by the way, to convert one to the other, it's about $3,500 if you can find an electrician.
Absolutely. All right, let's get to the next question. So next one that we have here is from Jane D. And she simply just finding an architect. Any good suggestions for someone that's looking for an architect to help them with their kitchen remodel?
Yeah, I think this is a great question, because I don't think there's a one size fits all approach to anything that is done out there. So, I live in a brownstone. I'm actually in my brownstone right now. And so if I was to redevelop, and I would use somebody, and I did, who's familiar with the ins and outs of the particular architecture you're trying to do, right? So, modern, what was it, the modern farmhouse look, which is popular now in Needham and Metro West, you might find the architects. But here's another thing is, look up the builders you like, and even if you don't use them, most of these guys have photo credits, and the photo credits will tell you the designer, the architect, and the builder. So you can really check out all three at the same time, but really find the architect that's known for doing the type of construction that you want to do.
All right, let's go to a live question here from Spulia. It says, do you recommend Samsung appliances? Always a fun question to answer for us here.
Do you want to start with this one? I'll certainly finish.
We'll start. So we have definitely sold Samsung. So in the past, we sold a lot of Samsung, and, through COVID, for a few reasons, we've kind of made the decision to move away from Samsung. And the biggest reason for that was service. When you look at Samsung and their appliances, them and LG, certainly, two of the biggest innovators when it comes to technology and features and really kind of cool and differentiating designs that they have. But it's really, when you really dig into the service side of it, that's where they struggle and don't put a huge emphasis on it. And for us, where we are such big, we service everything we sell, and we invest so much on the service side, that is really everything to us. And if they don't service well and don't support well on the back end, it makes it difficult for us to recommend a brand like that.
Yeah, again, I would say I don't have a global recommendation. I like the products. I do. I just think what happens afterwards is a problem. We had a chat with their national service manager, and it didn't go very well. But that said, I was reading on our YouTube site today that somebody in San Diego got a Samsung repairman within a day. And it really depends on, everybody's out to sell on the internet, either the affiliate link or they take money from a manufacturer. And so all that stuff is suspect. We don't do any of that. But I would say whatever you do, features are good, it's fun, but really check the service in your area. That said, I know a little bit more about Samsung. I'm leading on because they're 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 second in command and service now works here at Yale, so I know all about them. Let's just leave it at that.
Next question. Next one is from Susan M. And she asked, induction range versus a cooktop and an oven combination. Cooktops seem to have lower repair rates than ranges, and looking at really kind of specifically pro level appliances there.
Yeah. The cooktops have been around forever. And in fact, induction cooking started in the 1950s, but the cooktops we sold in the 80s went away, and then we started selling them in the 2000s. Induction ranges are a more recent phenomenon. But really what it comes down to, as far as the repair rates, induction cooktops are like 30 amp and the ranges are 50 amp. And I think anytime you get a spike or something in the electrical, can fry the control panel a little bit, is what service is telling me. That said, when you're talking about range versus wall oven and cooktop, it depends how much space you have, what kind of accessories you want. Like if you want a wall oven, it's easy to put a steam oven over a single wall oven, whereas you'd have to get a 48-inch Pro to do that. So it really depends on the space and what accessories you want. I think wall ovens are better if you've got space because you don't have to bend, right? So, but really it's a space and features kind of question.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, definitely comes down to more than even just the repair rates, like, the layout of the kitchen, the ease of use, certainly when you're looking at a range compared to a separate wall oven and a cooktop, a lot of times using that cooktop and wall oven sometimes can be easier. You can put that wall oven more kind of waist height. You're not bending down. Price is always a consideration there for sure too. You definitely would spend more on a separate cooktop wall oven than versus one range. And then just one other thing I'd always throw out when you're comparing those, range, you could do a 36-inch range. If you're looking at that, that oven certainly is going to be bigger than a typical wall oven at 30 inches. But again, may or may not be a huge issue for you there too. But just some things to think about when you're comparing kind of that combo versus the range.
Have you looked at the 36 induction ranges? The ovens are actually smaller. That Bosch wall oven.
France, we've looked at, I know. Yeah.
3.7 feet. It's bigger at 30 than it is 37.
Yeah.
Go on.
All right. Next question. We got one from Vicky, and she says, what is the most reliable dishwasher at $1,000 price point?
Okay. When I give the answer to this question or any reliability question, I'm always blasted over the internet. I don't have any, I don't, we fix this stuff at a loss. So we want reliable products. This is based on just pure sales versus service calls, right? So I would say it's LG. It's been LG for 3 years. That doesn't mean you buy it, but they are the most reliable. And then, the Thermador Bosch thing, because it's a basic Bosch that you're buying at a much higher price and getting it free on the 1-2 free program. It's those two. What's the other one? The Bosch.
So I'd say, so a Bosch, like a 500 series Bosch, an SHE 53, for example, at $999 is a really good dishwasher at that price point. And at that price point, when you're comparing to some of the other Bosch, certainly different features, but really good, reliable for something in that $999 price point. Miele is going to be a little bit more expensive, really kind of at their starting point, but really at that $999, agreed. Bosch, LG, and Thermador, of course, with the promotion, kind of brings it to that price.
48 decibel Bosch, which is $700, and getting a $1,399 rebate to buy it.
Yeah. All right. Next question. This one is from Joe T. And it says, what's the pros and cons of a drawer microwave and a steam convection oven? So kind of two separate questions there. Pros and cons of those models.
It's funny. I'm sitting in my kitchen. I've got a microwave drawer I never use anymore because I bought a steam oven that I do use.
There we go.
And it's like the yin and yang of cooking. And the yin is like, you want to cook something quick in a microwave, fine, but it targets moisture. So that's why everything's shriveled. Whereas steam does just the opposite. Steam makes everything taste better. It doesn't bake out nutrients, adds moisture, could cook anything. Think of a roast, right? Roast, you want kind of like, most of the ovens we sell are electric. And, if you put a steam oven in, you're adding moisture, so meat comes out better. Everything's better in a steam oven. That's the advantage. The contour drawer microwave is simple. It's really expensive for what it is. I mean, $13.99 for what, 1.5 cubic feet? But it is convenient, putting it under a drawer, you get it off the countertop. It's in a convenient place, based on what it is you do.
Yeah, that's definitely the benefit of it. And if you're looking at the question as more of a pros and cons, maybe of either or drawer microwave or steam convection, like you said, you can use that steam convection to really reheat pretty much anything.
I
But
use
you can't.
I use it to reheat. The new
Exactly.
reheat,
Yeah.
reheat crispy, and reheat humid. So it varies the steam convection percentage, and it works. That I can
And the
do.
only thing I'd say, like if you're using that as your full microwave, and like pros and cons there, there's no popcorn button in your steam oven. It's certainly going to take a little bit longer to reheat, but the food's going to come out way better. There's no question. Like you said, the steam oven is going to add moisture back in versus what the microwave is doing is really taking all that moisture out of it. So
Yeah.
they're really doing completely different things. So, all right, let's go to a live question here from Charlie. It says, I've decided to buy a 48-inch Wolf range top with 4 burners, a charbroiler, and a griddle. I'm a simple K guy who doesn't really cook, but I think I want this. And am I overbuying this application? So we see this sometimes. So it's a 48-inch range, 4 burners, but then they have the griddle and the charbroiler in the middle. I'll start here. I would say my recommendation on a 48-inch, I think having the more burners is always better because I think it gives you the most flexibility. If you're looking at Wolf specifically between like griddle or a charbroiler, the griddle, I think in general, it's also a gas griddle on the Wolf, which is really nice. So it kind of gives you that high heat, but it also, I think, gives you a little bit more flexibility than the charbroiler. Charbroiler inside is going to give you a lot of smoke and heat for sure, and that's all gas. Know that on the Wolf, it's really one setting. It's only high. So it's not adjustable up and down either. So really what that's designed for, you can certainly grill there, but it's kind of designed to sear and then finish in the oven as well. So I think a griddle gives you a little bit more flexibility. And I always like the ability of having more burners versus taking a big chunk of that space away for having a griddle and a charbroiler.
I wonder what HR thinks of it. I'm a single gay guy. Well, I've got to be honest. Yeah, you're overbuying. Quite honestly, if you don't cook, that doesn't mean you can rationalize it. You can rationalize it any way you want by saying you've got better resale or anything else, but you're overbuying something big that you're not going to use. That said, if you want to know the difference, the grills really work because they're infrared. I mean, people pay 10 grand for that sear element on the links. It's really just an infrared that you get on the infrared Wolf that you put inside, as long as you vent right, because if you don't vent right, all that potentially harmful compounds stay in your new energy efficient house and you breathe that stuff in for a longer period of time, right? Griddles are great. And there's a brand that had a recall on the griddles, and I was surprised by how few griddles we sell. I think griddles are great. We used to be right across the street from a short order place in Boston when I was a kid. This guy made everything on a griddle. What a lot of people do is they just default to burners and add the portable griddle, which you can still do, but you're not going to get that same consistent temperature you would if you bought it integrated, but you do have that flexibility. And I think that's the way people look at it. But that's it.
All right, let's get to the next question. This one is from Stephen B. When choosing appliances for a client, is it more important to move them towards models they are used to using or to bring a client using 20-plus-year-old models into current technology?
Depends on the person, right?
Mm-hmm.
If someone's not going to use it, there's no need to bring in futuristic technology that won't be used, right? Even then, most of the smart appliances, I'd love to wager to see how many people like go on an app to go on an app to like, to cook something or see something. It really depends on the person. My parents are actually pretty technology forward, so they would be good for newer stuff. But if someone's not going to use it and they're adamantly opposed, there's a difference between hard selling and informing. And I just always back off in that particular situation. I mean, what's the point? And, when you argue and win, you still lose because people want to get you the next time. So it's
Yeah.
up to the person.
Absolutely. Ultimately, the person has to be, feel confident in what they're buying and want to buy that. So no question there. So let's go to another one from Spulia here. It says, this one's really about convection. And, this is definitely a common question that we get is one question I don't know is how to operate convection so it doesn't burn the food. Less temp, less time, or just temp. Confusing learning curve. I've never really used it. So just really with convection, like some of the differences there between normal bake.
Convection is just fan forced heat, right? So here's what happens. You're turning on a fan now. I imagine this is electric. Most of it's called true convection, right? So all that stuff's blown in from the back to keep an even temperature rather than regular convection, which takes it from the bake element below, and then the fan distributes it, or even just regular radiant, which bakes its way up. So heat rises, not such a bad thing, but it's not as consistent as the convection you use. Typically, there's two ways to look at it. Typically, it's 25 less degrees, 10 to 20% less in terms of duration, depending what you're cooking. The more dense foods and less dense foods require different times. Now, the way to circumvent that is a lot of the newer stuff has convection conversions. Even the older stuff, like KitchenAid's always had convection conversion. You press the button, it automatically changes it out for you. Meal is very elaborate. Wolf is very elaborate. Even Jenn-Air that we don't sell, they'll even show you pictures of what it looks like. They're very elaborate as well. So you can get like very intuitive controls, but most have basic convection conversion. The ones we sell, right? GE, Cafe, all of them.
Yeah.
You can hit a button. But there is some learning curve if you're going to do it on your own. But typically you want to do 25 less degrees and 10 to 15 to 20% less, depending on what it is you're cooking.
Yeah, and then convection is definitely a great way to cook for most things that you're cooking, where it's going to give you that even heat circulation and just multi-rack cooking. So it's definitely something that you want to kind of I would say definitely learn and play around with, because it definitely is a really good way of cooking most items, typically better with convection than traditional bake. Not everything, but definitely most.
There's a question here about third generation ownership by Simon Saad. I'll answer that after the time here, if anybody else wants to chime in, but we'll do appliances first, and then I'll answer the third generation, what you do type of thing. Not, should you be asking me, Fran? You're probably like, no, don't ask him. Right?
Listen, who better to ask than you? Come on.
Yeah, only for do you have time for the many things I did wrong? But go on. We'll answer that one at last. Okay.
Sounds good. Let's go to the one from D here. And she says, thoughts on Bosch new 800 washer and heat pump compared to LG's wash tower?
I like the Bosch interface, but the one thing I don't like is I can't figure out how they put the steam in there. You're supposed to fill it with that thimble. Is that the 800 series?
Manual fill, yeah.
I can't see myself doing it, which means I can't see 35 to 45% of the customers doing it. The other 10% are going to be upset that they have to do it. Versus the LG wash tub. LG is very, that heat pump. They're very intuitive with technology, but really the one I like the best, and I used to own it in my apartment, was the Miele. I love that machine. I think between the Miele and the Bosch 800, look at the Miele, you've got that honeycomb drum. You've got the cycles, you've got the caplet dispensers. You can do all sorts of special stuff. If you want to go up, you've got their auto dispenser, which is very likable as well. I mean, it's a really technology forward machine. And by the way, the first company to do heat pump only, Miele, 2017, I thought they were nuts. But as it turns out, they were first to where everybody is now, heat pump. So, and they're actually by far the most reliable with heat pumps. It's like 3.6% service, and which is nothing,
Yeah, and it sounds like you're stacking, so that's where you definitely see some of those benefits too with the LG wash tower. Certainly compact laundry like that's going to be a little bit shorter regardless, but LG is kind of nice that it kind of gives you the controls for both units in the middle there, so you're not reaching up higher. But again, not as big of a deal with compact laundry when you're stacking, because they tend to be much shorter anyway than full size. But one benefit you might get there too with the LG. And
just in case anyone's looking for full size laundry, you can control most of the dryers from the washer on the app now anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but still, the wash tower is compact, so you're not reaching as far in. So it's still a great machine.
All right, next question is from Tamar, and this is, and he asked, is it worth to get appliance protection?
Yes, and we didn't sell. I refused to sell extended warranties for like the first 20 years I was at Yale. I mean, everyone knew the Maytag machine was going to last 20 years. Why am I selling a 5-year warranty to make more money? I mean, yeah, it's good to make more money, but it's better when you actually believe in the product that you're making money with. Nowadays, that's not so much the truth, especially with French door refrigerators, pro ranges, induction ranges. You're going to need a service call within a year. The problem is most of the extended warranties are about as good as the ink that's on the paper. If you're going to buy an extended warranty, and we offer it as a option here, we don't push it, is really buy it from either an appliance store with service or a service agency. Even if they didn't sell you the appliance, you want to find the service agency and then buy it from them, because really what you're looking for in a service protection is actual service. So yes, all at the same time.
Yeah, that's the big thing. It's like, when you're buying that extended warranty, you want to ask those other questions. So who's actually servicing the appliance? If I need to have a service call, what number am I calling? Do I call you? Is it a 1-800 number? So really important questions to ask, who's actually going to be doing the service there. All right, next question we got is from Bob S. and asked about the reliability of dual compressors in refrigerators.
Well, it's no less or more than single compressors. I mean, LG is number one, but that's a combination of single CounterMax and twin compressors. Bosch is number two. Sub-Zero's always been. I don't think it's any more or less than a single compressor, to be honest. You think it would be more. I mean, you think it'd be less because a single compressor is working harder, but that's what it's designed to do, right? So I don't find one to be any more reliable than the other.
Yeah. And then typically, I'd say just with dual compressors, part of the benefit there too, for the reliability, it's separate, but part of the benefit there is really kind of the food preservation of that. And that's kind of keeping everything completely separate. You have two separate compressors and compartments for your fridge, your freezer. There's no air transfer. So your food is staying fresher for much longer than it would on a single evaporator, single compressor refrigerator. Although, like you said, a lot have gone to that kind of single compressor, dual evaporator that does something similar there too.
Yeah, you're keeping the environments different.
Yeah.
So, the freezer food doesn't taste like whatever you put in the fridge. Excuse me.
All right. Next question is from Beverly and says, are all brands of hood vents equal?
Well, don't ask Dennis that.
He gets passionate on this one.
Dennis and Fran are the Appliance Insiders. When are you going to get rid of that guy?
He doesn't know I'm here today.
Yeah, really. He's insane about hoods. He went out and designed the Yale hood, and he's really about lighting and getting the right Kelvin temperature. So lighting at 3,000 Kelvin, the baffle filters. But really, what you want in a hood, other than decent material, certainly, is you want something that's 23 inches deep that captures. All of you are going to be on your front burners tonight, and most of the hoods are like, over the range microwave 16 inches deep, and you're cooking at 22. Slide out hoods, downdrafts, ceiling blowers. They're all not designed to handle the increased output of today's ranges. So really what you want is something that's 23 inches deep that gives you good CFM depending on how you're cooking. Baffle filters are better. Lighting is better. Some of the materials are better, to Dennis's point, but really those are the basics,
Yeah, absolutely. And there's very few actual hood manufacturers, so you don't have to spend, tons of money to get a good hood. And those are the things that you're looking for. Like you said, it's the capture area, the type of baffles, the lighting, which, you said it now, and we definitely harp on that, but you don't see that or hear that talked about a lot when it comes to venting. That is critical to make sure that you're kind of checking that lighting and see what it would look like, because everybody puts, nice tile backsplashes and things like that. And when you have a hood that just doesn't provide much light, it casts a really not a great shadow over that tile backsplash that you might have really just spent a lot of money on and you want to show it off. So
first world problems. But most of the hoods
Yeah.
haven't changed in 20 years because there's nobody is talking about this stuff. But there's some with R20 halogen bulbs that
Hmm.
you can't buy anymore, or you shouldn't buy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, next question. This one comes from Jack, and he says, "Why does Yale not sell HISENSE?"
That's a good question. HiSense, big Chinese manufacturer, owner of ASCO dishwashers. ASCO has been on an interesting tour of ownership. They were Swedish, sold to the Italian Maloney company that went the equivalent of Chapter 7, right? And then they went to Slovenia, right? And then the Slovenian company got bought by the Chinese HISENSE. But we service what we sell. So carrying 150 brands like others advertise, it's a non-starter for us. We got to carry a reliable product and only 20 to 25 tops before we start not fulfilling our promise of servicing on time. So, but I wouldn't put it. I don't know. I don't think I've ever met a rep from HISENSE. Have you? No.
Never. Nope. Someday, hey, listen, we never say never. Never's never ever. Never's never permanent. So who knows? All right. Well, I think that's
Only
the
constants has
last of
changed, right?
exactly. That's the last of the questions here today, Steve.
Is that it? Well, that was
That's
easy.
it.
All right, why don't we answer the question and hopefully hopefully I'm able to help you with this. I would ask Simon, how old are you? Can you put that in the chat? Not that it matters. Now I've been really, depending on how you think of it, I've been running Yale since 2000. That's how long you been in Yale, Fran?
About 10 years now. Just
10
about 10
years.
years exactly. Yeah.
And really, the biggest piece of advice I have is surround yourself with good people. And that wasn't always the case with me. We had a big turnover of management, which is a really kind word of saying dismissing a lot of really bad people at one time. And I in one of my webinars, I said, about finding good contractors. Good contractors will solve problems. Bad ones will cause them. It's the same thing in business, right? Is to get good complementary type people. We talk about Dennis. He is he's really good on that sales and merchandising point. I used to think I was pretty good at it, but he's better. Leo runs the operations. He's a very detail oriented guy, and I'm more in the marketing realm. And I really think that's the three legs of the stool today is marketing, sales, and operations, and doing what you say you're going to do. And when you fall down, getting back up and redoing that with the customer you may have disappointed. But finding the right people is the first thing, and then never stopping to learn and really try to master your craft in terms of what it is you're trying to do. Like, you got to have an understanding of what it is your company does. I'm not the IT guy, but I have respect for it. I'm not the warehouse guy, but I used to work in the warehouse as a kid. And the other thing is you got to keep your ego in check, because it's okay to have people that are smarter than you. You hope that they do, right? Smarter than you, and whatever it is you having them do. If you're the smartest, I can't remember who said this. Was it Einstein or something? Or it was Confucius, actually. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Right. So you got to have the ego you got to keep it in check and make sure that you have the right people. That's the biggest thing I've learned in 40 years at Yale is it is hard sledding with the wrong people, and it can be fun with the right ones. And years go by and being miserable the years go by with you're miserable or not. So you may as well get those people, compensate everybody more than fairly, be good to your customers, and respect your people. And I think that's really all business is about. I hope I answered your question. Did I answer your question? You could put it in. Is he still here? You know, after all that.
Who knows? It sounds good though. Some great tips there for sure. So
maybe there's another third generation owner who listened to it. Anyway, that's it for us. Happy holidays to everybody. You know, safe travels, and we'll see you again next year in some ranking videos and some webinars and some videos. And happy to tangle with anybody on comments on the blog or the video. And have a safe and happy year. You too.